remember we lived in North Queensland and we had some cyclones come through, and I remember our whole family was in the bathroom one night when there was a massive cyclone coming through and everyone was really anxious, and I remember looking at my dad and saying, is everything going to be all right? He said, yeah, no worry, no. Someone has designed this building, it's not going to fall over. And I think that put something inside my mind as a 6-year-old boy that I appreciate that someone has done this, that I feel safe. So as an engineer, I feel pretty privileged to be able to help with that shelter component.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 6, basically speaking. We are back on the train of talking about the process of projects from inception all the way through, from sketch design, and we finished off at design development applications, and we threw in interiors to talk about that very important role and exactly what the varying roles are. We're jumping back on the train now to talk about, it's a bit of a long-winded topic. We'll only say it once because we'll just diverse a little bit. Building approvals, construction documentation, and consultant coordination. It's a long topic.
Very exciting.
It's a long topic.
You promised it won't be dry?
Yeah, well, we will. And look, we're extremely lucky again today to have a special guest in Josh Neale, who is an extremely talented structural engineer.
You're too kind.
He has been a client on a few varying projects. Obsessed surfer.
Yes.
It's a good obsession.
Yes.
A good mate. What's the last one here? And a general good shoulder to lean on. We've had some chats about everything from projects and surfing to mates to bike riding to staff to all sorts of stuff. So it's been a bit of a...
it's been awesome.
Yeah. And we're going to expand on some of the out there things that we've done and talked about. Some have come to fruition and some have just sat over there. But look, I've probably known you now for, I'm going to say 19 years or thereabouts. I think we got introduced very early in when we started by Scotty MacGyver, the builder, remember? And I think we're Stera where you work, and I'll get you to introduce that in a minute. But I think you've gone through varying different scales. You're located down on the northern New South Wales, but there's offices here and there's up the coast, and I think there's been different levels of expansion and so on. But we work on all different scales, which I think is really important. So 19 years, fair to say we've had a few yarns about all sorts of things. And we'll expand on those. I've got these dot points under here, but I'll throw to you just a little bit because you're champing at the bit to talk to me about. Before we do, we've got our water. We've got the bellwether. I'm just going to put that in here, and you can, if you want, sip on it. I think it's just a nice little bit of colour to the table.
Yes, beautiful.
So, yeah, if you want to, you can expand on that. You can give your version. You can say whether I got anything wrong.
No, I mean, I've known Shawn and the guys at base now for a very long time, and I've seen your expansion, and I think our expansion's probably been at a similar rate to what yours has, and we have offices now all over southeast Queensland and in northern New South Wales, and we just opened one in Bendigo in Victoria.
Really? Oh wow!
Which is cool. It just came out of COVID. There was a couple of blokes that wanted to have work with us, and they happened to live in Bendigo, so we thought we'd throw a shingle up out there, and that's going really well. We mainly do engineering. Yes, that's what our company does, engineering. We make sure the buildings don't fall over, and I've always been passionate about engineering. And I think even from a young kid, I think that I was always passionate about engineering but didn't know. And I love Lego. I love Lego. I love just seeing how pulling things apart, seeing how they worked. And I remember we lived in North Queensland, and we had some cyclones come through, And I remember our whole family was in the bathroom one night when there was a massive cyclone coming through, and everyone was really anxious. And I remember looking at my dad and saying, "Is everything going to be all right?" And he said, "Yeah, no worry, no. Someone has designed this building. It's not going to fall over." And I think that put something inside my mind as a 6-year-old boy that I appreciate that someone has done this, that I feel safe.
Yeah. Did you go outside and see that your dad had built the house out of Lego?
No. But I remember we put the stuff on the windows and taped everything up, and it was all a bit anxious. It was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
But I do remember, and I guess that's one of the core things that people want is they want some food, they want some shelter, and water. Like it's one of the primary ingredients to life.
Yep.
And so as an engineer, I feel pretty privileged to be able to help with that shelter component.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, we all experience it, right? Whether it's houses, whether you're going camping, or whether it's multi-res, or all different things. And I think, as part of it is about consultant, at the risk of throwing in, outside of the cool stories, consultant coordination. And I think every consultant that we need on a project has a vital component that they bring to projects. And I think this series is about people that are looking to either do a renovation or a house or a medical facility or a high rise. The same process is all the way through. And this is about the building blocks or the bits of Lego.
That's right.
To not be overwhelmed with or intimidated with, or when we as an architect say, well, we need to get a structural engineer. They're not to go, well, I thought you did it. And I get that sometimes they do think that. Yes, we can be the one-stop shop, but we're more about we can bring the teams together. And I think that's the purpose of this, is to open people's ideas about who we need, why we need them to get to the different stages. And in your case, it's, and we'll get to that in a bit more gritty, but it's really vital. Like, especially when we start talking about costs and how we can get efficiencies and all sorts of things. I mean, we have some pretty robust discussions about how we are both frustrated at many times about how the system is, and how do we challenge it? Not so much about beating codes and the likes, but how do we build more efficiently? How do we design smart, efficient for people and for place, right? And there's no right and wrong. And this is what I think potentially keeps a discussion going, and sometimes for myself keeps you up at night, because you're like, okay, traditionally, yes, we put that beam across there, but why? And more often the answer is pretty simple. It's because it needs to hold something up. But if you don't ever ask the whys, you'll just keep doing the same thing.
That's right.
And the same result, it gets priced, it's too much, people pay for it, and that's it. And you sit there going, you shouldn't have to throw money at every single element for it to be, to create.
Actually safe.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think it's the challenging of that, and it's time, and you want to see value in each person that comes on board. You don't just getting someone for the sake of it and to tick a box and be compliant.
That's right. So the engineer, to answer your question, the engineer...
What was the question?
What do you do? So my job is the architect yourself comes up with a pretty picture, and usually shows it to the client before they come to me and say, now we've shown this beautiful picture to the client.
This is other architects, of course. You're not referring to that. Hey, right. Just need to clear that up.
We just want to make sure this is going to stand up. And my job is to make sure it stands up. And so I'm looking at things like wind, which is an obvious one. I'm looking at rain, the weights of the occupants and the things that are going to be in the building. And gravity. I'm always thinking about gravity.
That whole thing, right?
Gravity. And then, the soil conditions, what sort of foundations. There's that old saying, don't build your house upon the sand, build it upon the rock. And that's for engineers. Write that down. Yes. It's, I think it's in red letters somewhere. But, our job is to just make sure that we can help bring that image to life. And make sure it's not going to fall over. It can be built efficiently. And within a budget.
And I think, look, there's varying degrees of everything in the world, right? There's varying degrees of architects, there's varying degrees of engineers and the likes, right? And you tend to gravitate to the people and the consultants and the clients that not only see the value in what you do, they understand it, they come along for that ride, and you can also talk that same sort of language. And look, it doesn't often happen, but I have come across consultants whereby it's like, look, just give me that and I'll make it work. And you can do it that way, right? You can take something and go, just make it work. But I prefer the idea of what you just said. It's about, look, this is a vision and this is a concept that we've talked to the clients about, but we haven't gone so far down the track to say that now we're going to burst their bubbles and say that you can't do that. It's about, look, here's a vision. However, we need a little bit of input.
That's right.
We need to know whether this has got legs, because we as architects want to and should be pushing boundaries, and so should engineers as well.
Yes.
But that, you can take that literally, or you can just take it for what it means. And because I think we are living in now a very litigious, prescribed world whereby codes and compliance are there for a very good reason, but you've still got to be able to question, well, hang on, why is the code there? What's the precedent? Can it be challenged? Is there a performance to do it so that you're not just accepting, we can't.
Yeah, you've got to have that creativity within the boundaries.
Yeah.
A little bit like when you go to a creative accountant.
Yeah.
The ATO's got all these rules.
Yeah. But
let's work out within those rules something creative.
Yeah.
And so I'm dealing with gravity.
Yep.
And material properties like concrete and steel.
Which are the malleable and movable and
that's
kind of
timber. Yeah, that's right. And geometry and things like that. So I've got these boundary conditions that we're working with, and then I've got the architectural vision.
Yep.
And so I have to choose what materials, what geometry, what shape
can best do that
at the right price.
Yeah.
Which is really important.
It is. There's so many. I think a common thing I've been saying to a lot of these is lots of links in the chain, even within each of these disciplines, right? Yeah. And it is a real task, and it's an enjoyable challenge for us and for you guys to actually navigate those. And it's sort of, it sounds a bit weird, but it's kind of fun when you've found a problem. Now, whether it's one that I've brought to you and said, look, Josh, I want to do this, but I'll never say to someone, I want to do that, and that's just how it's going to be, just make it work. It's like, this is what I'm thinking. Now, tell me if I'm silly, but I want to do that and expand that because the reason I want to do that is I want to see the view or capture that breeze or do that so that, the kids can do. There should always be a meaning why you're doing it. It's actually okay every now and then to say, it's because it looks cool. And that's fine. There's little bits of that. But functionally, it's got to still perform.
Yeah, that's right. If you're pushing the boundaries, it's got to be for a reason.
But if I don't give you the narrative and that story and that journey and if you're not interested in it, you won't get it.
No.
You meaning an engineer will not get that if I don't describe it enough. Whereas if you can understand it, go, right. Now that leads me to think about my material palette and my spans. And if you want that, what if we pop that out and do that? Yeah. That's when you can have this in-depth, detailed discussion about a connection that it's then not about the connection when the house is built. You don't get people coming in going, wow, look at that. Is that because of, it's just how it is, and it's the sum of all of those parts. And I think that's the bit where the story comes from the client. They might have come up with that narrative and said, we just had this thought about going out to that area of the yard, and it'd be really good if it was this big. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a great idea, and we can do that because the sun's there and that's there. Oh, now I need to talk to the engineer. And then going further on, I need to now engage with that builder. And that one aspect can take time, which is money, yes. But it's exciting to actually challenge that, for that building, that project, that space, that place, that detail to be unique to that environment. You're not reinventing those wheels all the time because lo and behold, we'll come up to something like, hey, remember we did that? This could sort of work, but a derivative, and we've pulled that and you do this. And there's a lot of this sort of hand gesture stuff, which I think is quite magic when you're talking about design. Now, if you can do that with the right people,
that's right,
the right client, it then becomes a little bit seamless or a little bit more fluid,
Yeah.
which is fun.
And what's interesting, you're talking about that relationship between architect and engineer. What most people would not understand is that predominantly engineers can be very boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you got to remember, most engineers were the top of their class in maths.
Yep.
In their grade.
Well, you not.
Yeah.
Now I know.
No, they were top of their class in maths. So everyone can remember what that kid was in their class, and the top of their grade.
Yep.
And then they went to university.
Yep.
And usually the top 10% of the engineering, cohort got jobs in consulting firms.
Yep.
The rest go into public service and things like that.
Yep.
And so you're dealing with these people that are highly intelligent and great at solving problems, but they may not have so much of the other side of their brain with the creativity.
Yep.
And so it's really important that when you're using an engineer, that you've got someone that can understand their creativity as well as as well as the otherwise they won't solve the solutions that you need them to solve.
Well, and it's the emotive side of it, right? And I rattle on about it a lot of the time, even with our guys, and about finding new stuff. And someone can come in with all of the great score, the GFAs, and here's a folio I did and whatever. But if they can't converse or they don't have that ability to uncover and unpack a story as to why, that's quite magical. And I think it is, and look, it's horses for courses as well. There are definitely projects that might not have a wow component. I'm trying to think of one. I'm trying not to think of anything we've done because then it throws us under the bus. But, okay, you've got to get from that point to that point, and it's a bridge and it's over a certain bit and it's just got to span it. And so it's like, okay, so some highly practical things about that. And that's fine.
A Bunnings shed.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even if we were to do a Bunnings shed, I think we'd still... Actually, we just finished a big shed. And I'm going to give it a plug. It's called The Jungle. It's out at North Lakes. It's the second one. And it's a big shed, but it's for fun. It's kids just go there. There's like a helicopter that comes through the building, and it's taken a shed.
A real helicopter?
It doesn't actually fly. But it's got a flying fox that goes out of the building and in, and big trampolines.
Yeah, wow.
It's pretty amazing. It actually just opened up, so get out there. Jungle, North Lakes. But that's how you can actually take a fun shed and turn it into a cracking fun space, right?
Nice.
I don't know where I was going with that, but it seemed like it was appropriate. Broadly speaking,
yes,
as a structural engineer, when do you guys want to be involved in a project?
I think as soon as an architect has come up with the concept, I think that's a perfect time, because then we can say, hey, this has got real bones to it. We think this is going to work. You've got enough bracing walls. You've got enough, column supports. Your spans aren't too big. This is all within the realm of your potential budget, limitations. Hey, we know that site. We've done work in that area.
Yeah, true.
It's actually a swamp, and you're going to need piers or actually that's rock. That's fantastic. So you know straight off the bat at the concept stage whether you're on the right track.
I think one thing that should be noted as well, and this is not going to happen all the time, and we don't abuse it and so on, but I think in particular our relationship with Westera over the period of time have been able to, even for myself when we're starting a project, I would have no hesitation if I'm sitting there going, I think this is good, but I need to bounce it. And I might bounce it off Chris. But if I really need to go, hey, you know what? A particular part of this project is really pivotal, but it needs a bit of input prior to even showing the client, because the risk is you sell a dream. I sell someone up the creek on a cracking vision or idea,
and I come and burst the bubble.
Look, there'd always be a solution, but I instead of going, if I didn't know an engineer, and I'm like, I'm going to have to engage with an engineer, I have to sign them up just to get some advice. As I said, not that we definitely don't abuse that, but I think it's really nice to be able to go, hey Josh, can I just flick you an image? And within minutes, you can kind of go, okay, if I paint enough of a picture to you where it's like, hey man, I just need this, we're probably going to get you on board in another couple of months. But I want to talk to you about this because I think it's something that I need to know first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that little bit of a pre-engagement, which I think that's an experience thing from my point of view and an experience thing from your point of view, and then knowing that it's for the betterment of the job and the client and those sorts of things. So I think you're right. But if I were to go and, okay, let's say the client signed us up and that we've talked and we've met and we've done those things. If I just said to them, right, you got to sign up an engineer straight away. If I were the client, I'd be like, well, what are they actually engineering?
Yeah, what are they going to do now?
So I don't want to do that for the client's point of view, but I know that I'm going to create something that I'm probably going to need a little bit of pre-advice on, which isn't going to, I'm not asking you to spend a week on something. It's like, hey, what do you reckon of this? Most of the time, it's just a really good discussion about, hey, that's great, da-da-da-da-da.
Couple of hand sketches.
Yeah. So I think it wasn't so much of a leading question, but it was probably one that the answer is yes, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Not so much. If you went to the book of when to do things, it's like, I've got to do sketch design and design development and da-da-da-da. And now I'm going to get an engineer.
Yeah.
Sort of,
I reckon
projects are different.
when the architect is still drawing by hand is the best time.
Okay.
Because it's still in the formative stage.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's still a bit loose and a bit
As soon as you
imaginary. As soon as you get into CAD, and drafting and stuff like that, that's when you're almost too far down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
If you're gonna ask an engineer a question, a big picture, because when you're drawing by hand, you're looking at big picture stuff.
Yeah.
And you want to just make sure the big picture's working before you get into.
I asked the same question of the town planner, and the answer was the same. And it's good because that's, in a perfect world, you do engage with enough people that are right for the job at some stage to come on board to bring something to fruition early on.
Yeah.
Okay. How important is it that the architects and the structural engineers are in sync?
It's like a marriage, Shawn.
It is a little bit. Well, we don't argue, but
no, we don't. Our personalities are perfect for each other. So you really want to want to have a great healthy relationship, where you can be honest with each other and talk about this is not going to work, that's going to work. I don't know whether that's that. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah. Where you can have the honest chat about it, right? It's not so black and white, because often people will say to us, "Oh, the architects are the creative ones, and it's certain side of the brain." And then you get an engineer, and it's that. And I disagree with it because I think, and not to be just someone to disagree with it, but I just think it is really important that the creativity should flow through the project.
Yeah, that's right.
And what you're doing with that as well is you're encouraging the project and the clients to be creative as well. So it becomes very collaborative.
If you don't have an engineer that you get on the same page, you'll get roadblock after roadblock.
Yeah.
And it can be a real dream crusher.
Oh,
all of a sudden
absolutely.
You've got cross braces in front of windows.
Yeah. And it's a bit like, well, that's what I need. Yeah. Rather than, you want to have an unobstructed view through some transparent glass. Yes, that's right. So look, I think that is really, and I think that should be a bit of a mantra really for anything you do.
That's right.
Even your accountant or your dentist. Poor old dentist, I've given it to them every episode, but you do, because you need a synergy there where it's like, okay, because then if you're comfortable with us and we're comfortable with you, having a meeting about a project is like excitement about how do we solve this problem.
And we're all want the same thing at the end of the day. We want the client to have a great experience. We want the client to think, gee whiz, I'm so glad I went to this architect, and from this architect, they put me in touch with these guys, and they all wanted the best outcome for my project.
Yeah. Yep. Look, I think that's perfect. And I mean, look,
because you can get some people that just roadblock and real, rule sticklers.
Yep.
Our job is like a creative accountant. We know the realms of the constraints, and we've just got to work out a solution together.
Yeah. And I think that also extends through both your staff and our staff. That what we've, I guess, established, and Chris as well, and the culture that. I now know, well, not now, but over the years, that I know who in West Era is going to be on that team, and they have the same
DNA.
link to you. And and it doesn't happen that often, especially now. If I need that extra bit of grunt or I'm not getting something there, that's when you get a text or hey, can you just pop your head into that? Yeah. And likewise, when you're working with us,
that's right.
So that's and how many, I can tell you, there's not too many engineers that walk into our office with a happy birthday cake.
Yes. Well,
It's been going on for years.
Well, I just figure with all your staff, someone has had a birthday that month.
Yeah.
It's
perfect.
So it's pretty safe.
It's funny though when we've got a new staff and you come in with a happy birthday cake, they're like, why is that guy bringing in happy birthday cakes? It's like, it's just a thing.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Shawn's office is right next to a bakery. So whenever I park in the bakery car park,
it's a happy birthday cake.
Yeah, happy birthday cake.
Makes sense.
I'm paying for that car park.
It's also not just why we engage you, but it helps.
Yes.
It's the icing on the cake. Okay, with respect to the building approval stage, right?
Yeah.
What are the key points you need ratified by the architects in order for you to do kind of your magic? And is this realistically the time when you do preliminary drawing or your preliminary drawings are factored in?
Yeah, so I guess I just need the floor plans, resolved or to a point where the client's happy with the general arrangement of the floor plans. You may not have, windows dimensioned or where you're going to be putting toilets and stuff like, but just the general arrangement.
Yep.
And a couple of elevations, just showing the way the roof's falling and any sort of those little tricks. That's the time when I get into a preliminary design, and my preliminary design is hand drawn details.
And I think that's perfect.
Yeah. And we're not getting too far away where we're going. We've reached the finish line. There's your drawings. Go off to tender.
Yeah, that's right.
See you later.
Well, I think this is a good time to not drag on about building approvals, but for us, building approval set of documents for those who are looking to embark on, let's just call it a house, right?
Yeah.
There's a milestone there with building approval where we get a certifier, not necessarily council, a private certifier that will look at a set of drawings which includes information from you, right?
Yep.
They want the same things, the floor plan, the general, there's a checklist of things to do because inevitably they've got to look at it and say, this is a compliant design. It is approved to be built.
Yeah, it's going to be this far from the boundary.
Yeah,
it's got a height. It's got the height,
That's right. And it's got some prelims at very least that are sized. You've signed it off. You've got the Form 15s and 16s and so forth.
This house in Dayborough has got a wind load of this much.
Yeah. And so
soil tests have shown.
Then the next stage, which we'll talk about in a sec, the construction documents, because it's confusing when you say to a client, oh, you have a building approval. And they're like, oh, cool, we can build off that. Technically, yes, you can. There's probably just enough that you can fumble your way through and build because you got setbacks. But for instance, you mentioned the toilets. We don't say what the toilet is. It's a toilet over there, and it could be $100 from Bunnings.
And you might have it facing this way, or you might decide you're going to face it that way. So it's in that general area.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the compliance enough is there where we've got input from yourself, we've got the certifier, we've got ours, and it's you draw a line and you go, bang, there's our building approval set.
Yes.
Right? Then we go on to do further. But prelim drawings, and I think I talked to you a few years back about, because what we would do, we'd set out our fee proposal, and then we'll get the engineer and they give a fee proposal. What we've found is if we don't tell you to stop going, you keep going. No, and that's fine. But what can happen is you can go down here and the costs come back and we've got to redo things. So then we've had a chat going, well, hang on, how do we nip this so that we say to you, okay, let's do some prelims, which can potentially satisfy building approval. But what it also does is gives enough info that is measurable. A builder can actually do a bit of a bill of quantities on how much steel you've got and so on.
That's right.
But what it does is you might go, for X dollars and time, we can get to that point there.
Yeah, it's a checkpoint.
It's a checkpoint, and we can go pens down if we need to, have a bit of a costing on that.
Let's make sure this is still on the right
That's right. And we can all,
trajectory to get built.
Builder you can have your input and we can, and we can go to say to the client, look, feels like it's tracking here. Yeah. Would you like to continue? That's
right. And at that stage, we also offer a bunch of cost-saving ideas.
Yes. Yeah.
Say, hey, look, this is your architecture. This is our design to match that.
Yep.
If you need some cost saving ideas, like if this is going in the wrong way with the budget, you can change the roof slab to a lightweight roof.
Yeah.
You can change your steel work by moving putting a column over here or putting
the
a
old,
bit of
can
a
you
wall.
put a column in the middle? I get it.
But I never throw that up as a solution. But I am aware that sometimes there's a financial reality
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
That not every client has a endless budget.
Well, I think that's the difference in, and look, we're not immune to it. Like, it's part of what we do, and over the years we've done some not so well, and we've done some really well, and we're only interested in this now, and that's a part of also getting the consultant team in order to get and same with the certifiers, we get them involved a bit earlier to go, hey, so then everyone's talking to each other rather than we'll do it, give it to them, you get that, we'll give it to them, and then the certifier goes, well, hang on a sec, and then the builder goes, well, you're way over budget. So I think it's just managing those things. You mentioned one about the slabs. It's an interesting one. I don't want to go too much on about it, but construction methodology the last 2 years has been as much of a challenge and a struggle as it has been rewarding, because we've got our ears to the ground about, okay, timber and steel costs have gone up. Concrete's down a bit. So at any given time, looking at Solar Road, for instance, we designed that up as a lightweight, and it came in, I'm just going to quote some numbers. It came in at like $430 a square metre to build that roof out of steel and timber and lightweight and plaster and da-da-da-da-da.
Gutters
and then I went, what if we did a prelim design on that same roof in concrete? Because concrete at the time was not only available, concrete's always available, it's reasonably steady costing other than the steel that goes into it, but it actually turned out to be like bugger all difference
with a much better outcome.
And a much better outcome. But certain times and periods of wars and inflation and all sorts of things, we need to know that. We can't just hang our hat on.
Well, that was interesting because that was during COVID.
Yeah.
And all of the timber supply into southeast Queensland was cut off.
Yeah.
And so the materials prices, they almost tripled. In a short period of time, those timber prices nearly tripled, LVLs and...
Well, look at a 9045 bit of stud.
Yeah.
Went from $3.72 to something like $7.20 a linear metre.
Yeah.
And now they've come down a little bit and steadied, but that's again a discussion, and it's being aware of what else is sort of having a compliant.
The concreter is the only trade that is still charging a day rate, right?
Yeah.
So they're the only trade that charges a day rate, whereas a carpenter might be charging $95 to $100 an hour.
Keep going.
And so the labour costs can sometimes be a real factor as well. Cost of living going up, and so the tradies are charging more per hour. But the concreter is still on a day rate. So you want to set your design up so the concreter is not there for 4 hours. The concreter is there for 8 hours because he's charging the same amount.
I nearly think that little bit of snippet that we've just talked about should be quite eye-opening to people listening to this about it's not just we draw some plans and you put some sizes to it. We're actually talking about world economics. We're talking about, well, why is that? And I'm talking to the concreter and understanding how do we make this design more efficient? Now that's right. That's bestowed upon us to do that, but it's nice to know that.
Yeah, understanding the way that a builder builds, he's got to get a concrete pump in, and that's $1,500 a pop. And so, how many times are we going to get the concrete pump there? Can we actually pour the concrete out of the back of the truck if we design the building in a way that has access and things like that?
And I mean, look, we all know on site things can change and some things may or may not work. But if we don't even start with that conversation,
you need a starting point.
Yeah. Hey, out of that discussion, did you know in COVID about, and I didn't, so I'm just seeing if you do, you might go, yeah, I knew it all the time. But did you know, like, all of our timber, most of our timber comes out of Russia?
Yes.
Did you know it at the time? I didn't know, far out. Like, who'd have thought,
Well, we've been specifying Australian species for a very long time for for that reason.
Yeah, right.
That a lot of that timber was, a lot of timber in the timber yards is coming out of Russia.
It's crazy, hey?
And a portion out of New Zealand. So So during that COVID time, Australia swapped over and was getting, there was boats on their way over, getting diverted halfway across, and so we ended up getting some from New Zealand over.
Yeah, and then I can't believe we're talking about the war, but we'll just get off on it in a minute. But with Russia and Ukraine, then all of the electrical things that we need in our industry and the automotive industry came from Ukraine. So you got these two massive components in the world that are stifling what we do. But we navigated through it, and that's the difference. Is that you just talked about opening a place in Bendigo because through COVID it taught us a lot of things. But I think the last 2 years about construction and costs, and even some little projects that I've done, and I've sought advice from you about how do we build this more efficient? How do we challenge it? Using 81 mesh for wine bottle storage, ripped down roof battens as dressed timber. So it's just thinking outside the square a little bit, but you need someone, because I could say that to some engineers and they're like, oh, I don't know the integrity of that. Sometimes you just got to go, it's okay. So I think though that dialogue and that narrative that we are constantly talking about assists us, it assists our projects, and it assists our clients, and that's important because all of that is about getting that outcome. And that's what we want. I think that's something that we, amongst other things, that we really are passionate about and share, is that yes, we do our pretty drawings and you engineer them, but we want to see that at the end. And we've seen many of it where you can actually go, oh, all of that works, and it's taken 2 years to do it. It's a pretty special thing, I reckon. So we've talked about probably the power of preliminary drawings. I think they are really powerful in it, and it's also a bit, there's a bit of a surety and security for the client that we're not racing ahead. We're doing our checks along the way so that we can get a better design. The whole notion of completing a good set of prelim drawings and structural designs to allow enough info to be able to get that better indication, right, of costs, engineering, buildability. And I sort of said there, we haven't always done it, but I think what we're doing now is so much a better way to do it.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And even if I have to say to you, look, great, we've done that prelim, can we just park that for 2 or 3 weeks while I chew the ear off a builder a bit and talk to the client, and you get all that and you come back and you go, cool, we're off again.
Or we need to adjust. So we haven't gone too far down to the next checkpoint. And we can redo this bit here, and we haven't burnt thousands and thousands of dollars.
We've had a few conversations in the yesteryear where we've both gone, or I've said to you, oh look, we've marched off a bit. I say to you, I don't want to charge the client anymore because I just feel like we can do this. And I'll say to you, oh, what do you reckon? Can you do it? And we're for a couple of projects, we're like, okay, we'll just do that for nothing. But that taught us to be better, to get that process for the betterment of the client. Because I would think you go and whack a client with a variation for me and for you, and they're like, well, but what are you doing? You're nearly downgrade
I didn't make
yourself.
any changes.
So that's probably more on us than the client. It's definitely not about.
And I think it's been really good. Like we've both been clients for each other.
Yes, true.
So I got my house built by you.
Yep.
I've got my best mate's house built by you.
Yep.
We did the wave pool down at Logan together.
Yep.
We've done heaps of projects, and being on the client side of things made me really realise how important those checkpoints are, and making sure that things are on the right track.
That's true. And there's been varying scales of that too, whether it's, as I said, your house, and we'll try to talk about that in a minute, because there were some really cool dichotomies with that about home, office, kids. It was really fun. Ben's house was awesome fun on another different level again. But then I've talked to you about, can I put a shipping container on a pre-existing slab and overhang it a creek? Yeah, sure. Just do this, bolt that down. Thanks, mate. Bye. That helps. Lo and behold, then we go and do that, and I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I can stand on the end and I don't flip into the water. And it works.
But you can't get 10 of your friends standing on the end.
You have got a caveat on that one, definitely. So here's a bit of a leading question. How important is it in the line of work you do to understand the vision and concept from the architects and does this benefit your design? As opposed, I think we touched a bit before, but are those days gone where, imagine I'm handing it to you, but you'd probably get a PDF. Oh, can you engineer that, Josh? Like, does that actually happen, or is there a precursor always?
Yeah, there's always a chat. There's always a chat about
that's good.
About how it comes together, and I mean, I don't love designing boring buildings.
Yeah.
So I love the challenge of something new and something fresh, and that's why I've been an engineer since 2000, year 2000, and I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
Because every job is a new design.
Yeah.
New solution, a new opportunity to solve problems, and so what was the question again?
I think it probably goes back to one where I said, is it important for the architects and the engineers to be in sync? I know you do a lot of work for us, but I also know you do a lot of work for other people. So I'm assuming you take that same approach. So you're in sync with those. So I think it's a bit of a yes or yeah kind of question.
You need to be on the same page as the architect to understand the vision for the job.
Yep.
So that you can help them realise that.
I should have done it before, and I did it in our first one. I had Chris here, and he's a bit like an almanac and an oracle of numbers. And I sort of said to him, we're 20 years now. Well, actually, in the next 2 weeks, we officially will turn 20 years. And I said, how many jobs have we done? It's got to be thousands or something. And he popped out a number. I was like, oh no, it's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, of course it is, Rain Man. What I should have done, which would have been interesting, is to know how many jobs that you've been involved with on base. And I reckon it'd have to be 70%.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'm gonna
when I look at your website.
Yeah, you go. I did.
There's not many that I wasn't involved in.
True.
And that's what the client might have known an engineer in the family, or went to uni with someone, or.
Oh, I do know. Even when we're looking for builders, clients will say, well, which builder do you think for the project? And we'll touch on it because there's a lot of reasons why we
different horses for courses.
That's right. And no different should it be for engineers, but very seldom do we get asked, and I think this is the premise of doing this, is because I'm not actually sure, and it's no fault of the general public or anyone out there, what engineers do, the nitty gritty of it. And I think it is just as important for a client of a project that is close to the hearts and so forth. They should, often I'll say, okay, we've got to get an engineer. Oh, yeah, okay, leave that up to you. It's like, I will, I'll thank you, because I know who we're going to probably use. But they very rarely go, oh, should we, who do you, they don't ask that question.
Yeah, whereas they would with a builder.
Yeah, and I do get it. Don't get me wrong, I do get it. But I think if they knew a little bit more about what we're talking about, they would see.
Well, the engineer can potentially save them like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on, just at the stroke of a pen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it's all in sundry, right? Yes, cost, but it's the journey. And, there is, believe it or not, more clients of ours want to be not involved as in sitting down in the meeting with the engineer while we're talking probably a little bit more detail that they might not understand. But I'd really like that if people knew who the team was, and you're not going to have a consultant meeting on a house. It just doesn't happen where you get everyone around, and you have it on big commercial ones because it's a bit more probably cut and dry. Okay.
You're doing well, Shawn.
Now be honest on this one. That's how I've written it, so I don't know what's going on. What are the best parts of working with an architect, and then what are the worst or most challenging?
Ooh, good question. So the best parts are creating bringing something really outrageous to life.
Yeah.
Something that, would normally be a computer generated image. There's a 3D image and for example, we've done a couple where the houses look like they're floating.
Yeah.
Or, there's, these big cantilevers, or they're just sitting above another section of building and floating there. And
or like one with a big quadrupod.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And so that's the funnest part.
Is
working with an architect, getting those opportunities to to create something that's unique, and that will be there for the rest of rest of my time on Earth. And we design these buildings for hundreds of years, and so it's leaving a legacy throughout the region.
Yep.
So that's probably my favourite part.
Yeah.
The most challenging part, I think, would be I think when an architect, and this is not in your case, but when an architect has a vision that I know doesn't align with the client's budget.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
so I can see straight up, because I work on hundreds of jobs a year.
Yep.
And so when I see a job come across my desk, I always talk to the architect and I say, okay, look, I know this is a complicated building.
Yep.
What's your gut feel on the client's budget? And they might say, oh, look, they've got $1 million to spend on this thing. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, that's 3.5 every day of the week.
Yeah.
How do I, as an engineer, a sub-consultant, send an alarm bell to the client without offending the architect?
Yeah.
Good. And so I do it very strategically.
Get someone else to do it?
No, I get my wife to call. No, I usually just organise a meeting and talk to the client and the architect together and make sure they're both on the same page with their expectations.
Yep.
And then I'll let them both know that I think that this might be outside that budget. Because I don't want to get to the position where I've done the work.
Not fun.
I've done the work. They've paid me.
Yeah. And they get nothing.
They get nothing. They don't get. They get a whole bunch of pieces of paper or PDFs.
Yes.
They don't even get paper.
Yeah.
They get a whole bunch of digital, pieces. And we've all done this work, and it doesn't become a reality. So that's the hardest, and it's happened a few times over my career, and I can see it like red alarm bells because I'm dealing with quantities much larger than your. I mean, how many jobs would you guys do a year?
Well, maybe 100.
100, yeah. So our company does about 1,000 in a year. So it's about 10 times. We're seeing that much volume come across our desks.
Yep.
And we know, because we always find out eventually how much they cost.
Yeah, of course.
And so
which is also important that you get feedback.
It's a loop.
Yes.
Because then it can inform the design.
It is tricky because it's a bit of a dark art. However, as you say, we've done it for long enough. We know gut feels, and I've done myself probably and you out of projects by probably being honest up front.
Yes.
So people don't, and I'm the same. People don't like hearing what they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm no different. But when what we do now, and I think it probably you may have seen it come through on our documents, is even at that first sketch, there'll be a table up here of areas, and it'll touch on the type of construction and what we believe at this early stage is. We'll break it down to square metre rates because that's all we can do at that stage.
Yeah.
Precedence, landscape, driveway, pool, da-da-da-da. We're not doing a full bill of quantities, but even at the first design, we're going, hey guys, look, this is what you've wanted, and I'm wearing a hat of giving you what you want, but also telling you that, hey, we're a bit over here, and this is the reason why.
In the images might show like micro cement and gold taps and all those Vitroska doors and all those things that I know are expensive. And you go, well, there's a potential that you could still get something like this.
But we've got to reimagine a bit. Because you don't want to say, oh, well, that's what you want, that's what it costs, you've got to find more money. But that's
the most challenging part. Yeah. If you get an architect that is unable to pull themselves away from the art.
Yes, yeah.
And into reality.
Because it's seductive, right? Like you can get drawn down.
Oh, yeah, that's right. These images look amazing.
Yeah.
But if you can't afford it, you can't afford it.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most challenging part.
It was an awesome question. There's an awesome answer. There's a couple of points to it.
Yes.
You talk about, the legacy and creating things that really work. On the flip side, there are firms or engineers out there that'd be like, it's too hard. I don't want to do it. I can't. You know what I mean? And so that's again being in sync. It doesn't make them a bad engineer, or
No.
it's just not for them. And
Different horse for course.
that's okay.
And you might be like engineers don't like working with owner builders.
Yeah, I don't either.
Predominantly.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can navigate it.
I love everybody, so I love helping people. And sometimes, sometimes the odd owner builder comes through, and I'm like, you know what, I've got
to you build something, maybe that we assisted with them.
That's right. And so I've got a soft spot for helping everybody, which is a pro and a con.
Yeah. Probably more a pro though.
Yeah, but my dad taught me treat others how you want to be treated.
Yep.
And so when I'm designing people's houses, I'm designing them as if it was my place.
Yep.
And if I put myself in those shoes, I want to know that, that they got enough money to pay for it. That, they're not getting led down garden path of something that they can't afford or something that is impossible.
I still have a vision of your dad in that bathroom building a Lego bunker.
Yes.
But I'll digress.
So my dad he works with me.
I know Bob.
He was for those that don't know, Bob, my dad, is an integral part of our business.
He is?
He was an air traffic controller.
Oh, I did not know that.
He was an air traffic controller for a long length of his career, and he wanted to retire. And I said, Dad, don't retire. Come and work with me. Help me be more organised, because as an air traffic controller...
Has he still got the paddles, or was he up in the field?
So he works with us, and he helps.
He's been awesome. And look, he also used to work upstairs.
That's right.
In this bank.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there you go.
many degrees of separation. That was a cracking question, and we got lots of answers out of it. Probably not even answering the question, but it was good. Is it a must-have when you look at your staff that they live and breathe what they do and is as engaged with architects as you? Is that important, like when you are?
Yeah, well, you know what it's like. When you run your own business, you want everybody in the business to treat the clients like how you treat them.
Yep, exactly.
And it comes back to that, what my dad taught me about treating everyone how you want to be treated.
Yep.
And my staff have all got the same DNA. They are all amazing people, and it doesn't take long before if we employ someone and they're not on the same page as the rest of us, it's not long before they feel
they get sorted out.
Well, they just feel like that they don't fit.
Yeah.
We've created this amazing culture company wide across all the offices, where everyone is passionate about engineering. And providing an amazing service for their clients.
But that also goes through to your civil guys too now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So we have civil and structural. I think we've got 106 staff now.
Yeah, wow.
And that, I can't think of a single one that
don't
have that culture. Yeah. It is something we're pretty passionate about.
Yeah.
To the point where in one of our offices, my office, if people are swearing or negative, then everybody in the office gets up them.
Right.
And they have to,
You have a swear jar?
No, they have to do 10 push-ups on the spot.
Good.
Women and old men.
Unfortunately, I reckon if I was working down there, I'd have bigger biceps.
But it creates this amazing culture of, your words bring life.
Yeah.
And they bring positivity, and then that flows into your work and the way that you're working on a problem. And if you've got a bad attitude or a negative mindset, and it comes through, because you start thinking, oh, that'll do.
Yeah.
Oh, that beam, that's close enough.
It'll do. I can't be bothered calculating it, so I'll bump it up.
Oh, this architect's giving me this problem. It's too hard to solve.
Yep.
I'm going to put some columns in.
Heaps of them.
But it's amazing how just changing that one little thing in our culture with the words and the way that we act and treat.
I remember that many years ago. I can't remember what you were training for, but I also can't remember his name, but he was this beautiful soul, New Zealand fella who you got training and he was getting you to run underwater with weights on.
Yes,
right?
Kelowna.
Yeah.
Mate, Kelowna.
I can't remember what, and we came down the coast once to look at a project, and I think we were trying to get you at the office. No one was there, and you were like, "Oh, we're just down at the beach, down over there. We're playing basketball. It's what we do on a such and such afternoon to get everything going." And I was like, That's awesome.
Yeah, so we still do physical training on Wednesday lunchtime.
Yeah, nice.
And it's a good sort of halfway mark for the week, and it makes a big difference to the culture. Yeah.
Love it. There's only a couple more. Some level of the structural engineers and other consultants' documents are required for us to be able to compile a sound set, as I said, for building approval. And we need to be careful, I guess, as to how far we engage, not just you guys, but others. I think we answered it before, but is that a helpful thing for you to know where our milestones are?
Yeah, that's right, because it's a relay race. We're all trying to get to the finish line together.
Yep.
But you hand the baton to us, then we hand it back to you.
That's a good way of looking at that.
And then, and then you back to us for us to finish off.
Because I find sometimes when I'm working with new consultants, and look, we work it out, but I sometimes find that, and I'll use your analogy of the baton relay, is that there's individual races going, and that they're just, that's their task and that's their scope and that's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
And what we do, I think, and when I say we and others, it's too engaging, or it has to be so engaging for it to work. If you've got people running separately, you've got sets of documents that technically get a building approval and they go to the builder and they get priced. But if there's not that synergy where there's discussions or, the clash detections and those sort of things happen,
and you don't want your relay partners to leave the stadium before the finish line. You don't want them thinking they're finished. And going home.
And that can happen. It's like, I'm done. No, I'm finished.
And because we still got a building. We do all these drawings, but then we've got a building to build. And so it doesn't stop. We're helping the builder execute drawings.
Let me just briefly read this one. Probably covered that. Okay, we've had a few chats over the years, and on some projects where there've been a few curveballs, cost concerns, which we talked about, fee discussions.
Yes.
And I think that's important that you do engage, because it's a bit what you said before about, well, not that we write our fees on their budgets, but it gives us an idea of scale and scope and level of detail. Inevitably, which is then you go, well, how much time are you putting into that? So having that discussion, an honest discussion about this, then leads to either, I might say to you, oh, look, their budget's about X dollars and they want this. And I'll say to you, look, I feel like we're going to be over a bit. So I need to have that chat before I even put that to there and before I even get you to start to talk about that. And more often than not, it will get ratified. Occasionally the client will go, oh, maybe we're bitten off too much. Instead of going on, maybe we need to just cool it and have a think about either refining or defining our brief a bit. Or sometimes they go, well, we can squeeze a little bit more, because sometimes we might not be that far off. And I'm talking everything from what I just said about a fee and or the end job, right? The fee is important. We need to pay our staff and it needs to run. But it's not the be all and end all, because we want to get there.
If you're only in this game to make money, then you wouldn't be in this game, because it's not the real passion comes back to making dreams come to life.
Well,
and having shelters for people.
And I think done well, you will get remunerated for your craft.
It all works.
It does work itself out. So after saying all of that, right, now I'm going to ask you to tell us about your experience when we worked together on your house.
I loved it.
What did you have at the time? Go back. How many years is it now?
It was, what did we do that? 2017, I think we built the house.
Yeah, so 7 years.
About 7. About 7 years.
Plus the design time, whatever. Probably 8 years in the making, thereabouts.
Yeah, so it was my wife and I, and we had
two.
We had my son.
Yeah, you only had one at the time.
And then we had Alice was pregnant.
That's right.
With the second.
Yes.
We now have 3.
Yes.
And so I came to you and I said, Shawn, this is what my life looks like right now. And I think it will always look like this.
With one child. Or 1.5.
Yeah. Can you please design a house that meets, where my life is right now?
Yeah.
And you said, Josh, I think your life will change. and you need something more flexible. And so we were very fortunate. We bought a block of land a couple blocks away from the beach.
Yep.
Down in Kingscliff, and it was only 500 square meters, so it wasn't a huge block. But you were able to work out, an amazing arrangement of having a home office above the garage, which could turn into a granny flat. I mean, I try not to call it a granny flat because I don't want my wife's mother taking ownership and feeling like it's hers because her name's Granny.
Right.
Fair enough. We call it the multi-use space.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But that was a tricky thing in its own right.
Yeah.
That's
right.
It was allowable and it was fine, and there was all sorts of things about privacy. And Alice was pregnant, and we're trying to talk about, you're going to have 6 other fellas up here, and it's like, well, hang on, where's my house? And there was the bridge and all sorts of things. But I think it was fun to dissect that.
Yes.
Both your life at the time and then predict a little bit about
that's right.
where it could go and where it might go.
That's right.
How does it become flexible? And adding that component of a granny flat per se,
yes,
it needed to work at every stage.
That's
if it
right.
wasn't the office, how does it work?
Yeah, how do I clean the boat out after we've gone crab potting?
Yes.
Where do I park the jet ski?
Yeah.
It was an incredible project because it ticked so many boxes, and we've made such great friends with our neighbours.
Yeah. So it's a cracking area, and the Lego Master's not that too far down the road.
That's right. Yeah. Mum and Dad live around the corner.
Yeah.
So, we absolutely love it, and it's wearing really well, and it's
it's interesting you should say that because we had some structural discussions about it, but really at the end of the day, the design of that, I guess, being quite close to it and quite emotive about it, and it was your home, and you're drawing it and engineering it and designing it on the fly. The engineering of it was quite simple.
That's right.
And so it should have been.
Yes. Most engineers' houses are just boxes.
Yeah.
But
it's
you allowed me to think outside that box.
Well said. Materials were really cool in that. It's in an area where I love that whole patined notion of how materials can just respond to the environment there.
That's right.
Because if you grabbed that house, and I could say this about many projects, you grab that house and just somehow tried to insert it into Spring Hill, it doesn't work.
No, it wouldn't.
For many reasons. But even the palette of materials it doesn't respond to place and space and all those sort of things.
That's right.
And it is harsh down there. There's a lot of salt in the air, and we had to find materials. And I sort of said in that, the whole front of that element there it's like when we put it up, we want it to be 50 years old. And it kind of didn't take long for it to sort of age itself that way.
That's right.
That was good. It was good fun. And I think it was really nice for Chris to be working on that.
Yeah, I love that.
So what do you say, 8 years? Yeah, thinking about where Chris was, where he was here. I think it was one of those turning points in I guess probably your life for one, but also in the way Chris kind of connected to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge project for us.
It was.
Thank you.
And you still love it?
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
It is good. And what about the Lego Master? He loves it there.
yeah.
I'm going to call him that now. I have to change his email to that as well. Okay, 2 more questions. What's been your favourite base project and why? Now, this is hard because we've just talked about one that was super close
obviously
to your
our
home.
own home, which we've created so many core memories for our whole
true.
family.
Yeah. Well, let's put that one up. So what's your second most favourite?
I think my mate Ben's house.
Yeah.
We
and again, Chris was involved.
That's right.
It's like
from the start. So we camped out on the property.
Oh, I remember that.
We camped out on the property because it was a rural property, and it had the opportunity for, there was a bit of a building pad there, but it wasn't in the right spot. And the arrival sequence was all weird and everything.
Yeah.
And so we camped out there, got a bit of a feel for the views, and then you went away and created this incredible arrival sequence and solution that no one had thought of.
Yeah.
Because when you have a primed, I call it a primed,
entry.
Like, so you've always driven to the site a certain way.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the view at a different point.
Yep.
And when you remove that primed response and come up with a whole brand new arrival sequence, it can totally change the whole site. And,
absolutely, yeah.
And so when you it's on your website, the Rocky one for those listeners.
Oh, and you know what? It'll stay there forever.
Yeah, and you arrive there, you walk up some stairs. You don't even know that the site has a view.
Yeah.
And then you arrive up the top of the stairs in the entrance, and then you're hit with it.
Yeah.
You see the swimming pool and and Ben, my mate, is the only friend I have with lots of money. The rest of them are normal people, and so I was so stoked that you were able to come up with this incredible home. Come up with this place that not only his family enjoys, but our family goes there and enjoys it with him.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty amazing.
He's got a skate park. He's got it was all the toys.
Yeah, but even when we met them both. I think they had one child. Yeah. By the time we finished the home and they were in,
they got 4 kids.
They had 4 kids. We'd sort of designed a flexible guest quasi additional main bed with its own.
And now he's got a TV.
Oh, it was a really awesome project to be involved with.
And there's some really good challenges there.
Oh, yeah.
Like the master bedroom where there was no bracing walls.
Yeah.
And we're able to use the concrete roof diaphragm to transfer back. And
a
couple of those things were really exciting.
It was pretty special. And a pretty cool bloke too. Like I think his attitude on things and his story was is amazing too. We won't need to go into it, but I just think he was still, putting aside what you said about, you mate with a lot of money, he's still very grounded.
Yeah, we both grew up from,
bit of school of hard knocks.
We grew up in Logan.
Yeah. No, it's been pretty good. And look, there was a couple of little offshoot projects that we started. We all had a lot of fun with. Yeah. Couldn't quite get them to come to fruition, mainly because of some authority rubbish that kind of happened. But the wave pool journey that we went on, and we had 3 goes at it.
Yeah.
That I learned a lot about it, obviously. But you talk about fluid movements and so on, and engineering. Remember liaising and discussing with the guy down in Tassie, I think, in bathymetrics.
Yes.
Yeah. And I tell people this, they're like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, it's the
way
the water works, and that's another whole level
fluid dynamics.
Just amazing, right? And I just started, we're doing these wave pools and the bathymetrics, and I couldn't stop thinking. You remember as a kid, you'd get in these small pools and you'd all get your mates and just go fast. Was that a bit of bathymetrics?
Yes, that's right.
I don't know. It was fun, and it sparked up a few things. And I think there'll always be.
And the thing I like about that project was that
the wave pool,
the wave pool, is that we, something I'm passionate about surfing and passionate about engineering. And for once, I thought, maybe I could join the two together.
Yeah.
And do a wave pool.
Yeah.
And we I'm so glad that we went down that journey.
Yeah.
Even though it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we went down that journey because it allowed me to see what was possible, and I won't die wondering about it.
True. Does it? Do you get a bit of like with the recent one that you no doubt have seen being announced down at I think it's at the
Gold Coast?
Yeah, the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Do you look at it and go, what if? Or do you look at it and go, thank God someone's doing one down there? Or is it just
I've always cheered everyone on with that sort of stuff. It is interesting that we got the first DA approval.
Yes, true.
For a wave pool in Queensland.
Yep.
Which was really,
we need to market that.
It didn't get built.
Didn't get built, but it was
only because main roads.
That was frustrating. Hey, I remember the discussion was like, we're not going to. We might put an off ramp there.
For the
it's to a flood zone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's okay.
It was frustrating.
It's okay.
Last question.
I'm ready.
What is Josh Neale's ultimate project? Maybe we just described it, but let's just imagine that wasn't it.
Well, I think one of the projects that I'm passionate about at the moment is we've got a church building that in our community, and so I've volunteered on the building the building committee,
Right.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
There's a few dynamics at play, and what I love about it is that we're creating a building that is going to it's not going to be something like a major cathedral or anything, but it's creating a space that is going to impact a community over generations.
Yeah. Okay.
And so for me, that's really cool. That the place is doing something more important than just standing there.
I think that's good because I wasn't fishing for any answer there, but it could have been answered very engineering wise and very, I want to do something that I knew you weren't going to answer that way, because I think we touched on it, or we've touched on it a few times, about architecture and engineering and creativity and outcomes and that. And I think we've used the word place and space a lot, and how it's not just bricks and mortar all the time.
People's lives.
It is people's lives, and it's about what they feel like in the spaces, and what it does to them, and what it does to the next generations, and so on and so on.
And I come right back to the start where I talked about my family, and we were in that bathroom together, and that security that I felt inside, knowing that the building was safe. Like that's a real core emotion inside me. And so I love when you say what's going to be the best project I work on. It's one where I'm creating a space that is really safe, but also impacting people's lives.
It doesn't need to be a marvel of, it doesn't need to be iconic. It doesn't need to be the biggest, the widest.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a byproduct of the passion that comes out.
Yep.
And that's why I work with so many architects and because I want to help as many people as possible.
Awesome.
Have these structures.
It's good.
Hey, you didn't touch any of your wine.
I know. Let's have it. I'm going to have a little sip. Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
And look, like most of these potties that we've done, you could keep going, and there's clearly
people that get bored.
But I mean, we have these chats all the time, so it was actually nice to capture some of that. And I think there's a lot of, when we first started talking about these, I was like, oh, do we have enough stuff? Do we have to force things? And I just thought, well, we have a lot of content. We talked about the Rocky house, and we've got images of it and everything, but behind the scenes on something like that, I have that little book that we made. I'm hoping Ben still has his copy, but it was of all the first little scribbles and everything. That's content. And some people go, oh, that's just rubbish, it goes in there. But it's the story and the journey behind what we collectively do that you just want to share that, because there's no use keeping it all to yourself, because the hope is that people, audience, whether they see us as architects and engineers or go to somewhere else, it's enlightening them about what they can have. Because I think there's a big thing about misconceptions, and we all have it with everyone. If I said, you've got a different vision of what a police officer is, and all those sort of things. So if you're not told otherwise, or you're not given enough information to make your own decision about, I want people to be going, I didn't know that. Like a lot of this interviewing that I've been doing with everyone on these things, I've gone, I didn't know that. Speaking to Tony about finances and that, I'm like, didn't know that. If you can still be learning things and going, oh, that's really interesting, now I can talk to someone else about that. And you can get these emotive stories about why we do things, why we do it. Hopefully that resonates with people. I go, oh, that idea of doing that can work for our family, but they might find someone else. That's fine. We're not here to plug. It's here to kind of get our story, our collective kind of experiences and journeys out, and the hope that they're somewhat interesting. That's
We'll find out.
That's the aim of it. So look, I'm gonna
podcast taking those time.
Let's put a line through it. We're going to conclude this session.
Yes, thank you.
It's been fun. I'm loving doing these. Look forward to the next one. I hope you're going to watch them and go through them all and see a bit of a pattern and and hopefully in 12 months time we can look back and go, yeah, that'll all make sense and we can run it again or do something different. But everyone out there, stay tuned. Go to all of the popular channels, Spotify, and I get this wrong all the time, all the other podcast stations. Go there, enjoy it. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.